Hi, I'm Roxy Coss, and I'm here today to talk to you about jazz chords. So jazz harmony seems very complicated, but it's very simple actually. And in order to talk about jazz harmony, the first step is to really know your major scales. So if you don't know your major scales like the back of your hand, go home and shed that first and come back to this video. Once you have your major scales down, we can talk about jazz harmony. And the thing that separates jazz harmony from any other harmony is that when we're talking about chord structures, we're talking about 7th chords. Now that doesn't mean that you have 7 notes in the chord. It means that instead of just having a triad built on the root, 3rd, and 5th of a scale, you actually have 4 notes that are built on the root, 3rd, 5th, and 7th of the scale. So we're going to start with the key of C, which played on the tenor sax is really B flat, because it's a B flat instrument, but I'm going to play my C. The reason I like to do C is that it doesn't have any sharps or flats in the key signature, so when I start to talk about the harmony and building up different chord qualities, you can use sharps and flats and understand the alterations to the major scale. All right, so the first chord we want to talk about today is C major 7, and this is our root, 3rd, 5th, and 7th, and there's no alterations. So we're using the notes of the C major scale, so it would be C, E, G, and B. And as you practice this on your instrument, especially with the saxophone, I encourage you to practice different articulations, different rhythms. Using the whole range of your instrument, and use it as an exercise not only in harmony but also in technique of your instrument. All right, so that's our major 7 chord. Again, 1, 3, 5, 7 from the major scale. The next chord I want to talk about is dominant 7 chord. Now, when you see the chord symbol for this, it just says 7. So this is where it can get a bit confusing when we talk about 7th chords versus a 7 chord. And a 7 chord is a dominant 7 chord, meaning you have a flat 7. Even more confusing, but it's really not. All you have to do is flat the top note of the chord or the 7th degree of the major scale. So in the key of C, this would be C, E, G, B flat. And that's what gives us a bluesy sound. So the blues, for instance, is made up of dominant 7 chords. As we go through the chords, you'll notice that I'm adding a flat and getting a little bit more dark. The next chord would be a minor 7 chord. So now we're going to keep that flat 7, but we're going to also change the 3rd. We're going to flat the 3rd, and so we would have 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7, which in the key of C is C, E flat, G, B flat. All right, so we're getting sadder, we're getting darker. The next very common jazz chord you'll see is what is called a minor 7 flat 5, which is exactly what it sounds like. We have a minor 7 chord, but we're also flatting the 5th. So 1, flat 3, flat 5, flat 7. In the key of C, C, E flat, G flat, B flat. A very jazzy chord. All right, the trick about that chord is that sometimes you'll see it notated as I described, minor 7 flat 5. Sometimes you'll see it notated as a half diminished 7 chord, which looks like a circle with a slash through it and sometimes a 7 next to that. All that means is that it is not fully diminished, but it's half diminished, which is the same quality as minor 7 flat 5. So 2 different ways to describe the same sound. Lastly, we have our fully diminished 7th chord. So again, we need to somehow get darker than we already have. We never alter the root or the chord becomes a different chord because then you're starting on a different note. So we still have the root as a C in this key, but we need something to get darker. So we're actually going to double flat the 7th. So we have root, flat 3, flat 5, double flatted 7th. Don't give way to the temptation to call this a 6. All right, so in the key of C, we have C, E flat, G flat, and B double flat. And you'll notice I didn't go down to the 7th on that one because, of course, the tenor saxophone has no low A. All right, and that is the most common 7th chords that you'll see in jazz. I recommend you practice these as I have demonstrated. First, just 1 octave, then full range of your instrument, all different rhythms, all different articulations. Once you're fluent in these chords, and of course in all keys, anytime you see a lead sheet with different chords on it, you'll know exactly how to spell the notes of each chord.